Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Sunday talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. I'm one of your two hosts, Nor Kyle.
And I'm the other one of your
And
two hosts, Mushtaq Ali.
yes. So, wow. We have a bunch of people here tonight. You guys must be particularly interested in this topic or just that excited to hang out with us. Either way, I love seeing you all here. And those of you who are watching on the replay, equally happy to have you guys here too. So, annoying YouTube spiel. Thank you for supporting our channel if you're doing that already. And if you're not, why not? Give us a like on this video or leave a comment or perhaps subscribe to our channel. All of those cool things help support our visibility in terms of being able to share the work that we do for free with the world because it matters to us. And so that helps us out a lot. And it also allows our community members to be able to share their wisdom with all of you out there as well. Because as we often say, the Nine-Sided Circle is not just about me and Mushtaq, but it is also about all of you. So that's important that we always keep that in mind and point that out. Do I need to add anything else, Mushtaq?
Yeah, the fund drive is still going on so that we can pay for doing this for the next year. So
Yeah.
what I would like you all to do right now is to get up and go to your couch, pull up the cushions and look. And if there's any change laying under there, gather that change up and tie it to the leg of a carrier pigeon or something and send it to us. We will be ever so grateful, and it'll keep our internet working and our cloud server going and all of the things that we got to do to actually make the Nine-Sided Circle a functional thing. We operate on a shoestring budget, but it is a budget. What can I say?
Indeed. Yeah. So if you prefer a more 20th and 21st century way of that kind of thing, you can always donate to our PayPal or
Our
subscribe on our
coffee.
coffee page. Both of those are in the description. And if you want to hang out with us in other domains, you can join us on our Facebook group too. So we have the Nine-Sided Circle Forum.
Yeah, that's where the
And
cool kids hang out.
yeah, so that as well as our email list, that is how you get in touch with us and keep track of what we're up to and get links to join us, like on our talk right now. We have people here live, and if you so desire, you might have the opportunity to join us as well if
Yeah,
you
get in
join
with
us
the
on those
action before
things.
we have to put a cap on how many people join.
Yeah, because
That'll
it's
be any time in the next 5 years.
yep, we're playing it by ear. All right. So as far as this evening goes, we are going to be discussing, gosh, how do we keep up the energy to do the work that we're doing on ourselves and in the world? That's an important topic, and it's one we always have to keep at the forefront of our uh, consciousness, I guess, because it is so easy to fritter our energy away, isn't it, Mushtaq?
Yeah, this topic started with me posting a quote by E.J. Gold, which pointed out that while we think we have all the time in the world, by the time we get a little bit older, we no longer have the energy necessary for transformation.
That sounds kind of discouraging.
It is very discouraging. The good news is that you can get it back. Nothing is writ in stone. You can start regaining your energy up to the point where you die. I mean, why not? So tonight is going to be all about the things that you can do to, if you're young, keep the energy necessary for transformation and build up more of it. And two, if you are old and feeling a little bit tired, how to get some of that energy back. Some of the ways will surprise you. I should do like they do in the ads. You won't believe way number 5. It'll amaze you.
Clickbaity, boo.
Yeah, clickbait everybody. No, we're going to tell them all to you, and there's not going to be any commercials. We aren't selling you anything here except for maybe a more comfortable life. So how do we do this, Noor?
How do we do this, Mushtak? I know at some point there's a diagram tonight.
Yes, there is a diagram.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you lose your energy? Here's the question. What happens to where you lose your energy?
We talked a bit about that in the past, so I actually want to put this out there to all of you. What do you recall are some ways that we tend to lose energy? James.
I can't recall if you said it this way, but I think, well, mental rumination
Yeah, that can do it.
Yeah.
and needless physical tension through whatever reason, poor organization, high anxiety levels, whatever.
Another good one, definitely.
Yeah. Now, the reason this is important, and I've said this many times before, and I'll probably say it many times in the future, but I'm going to say it again now. You know how hard it is to do real, lasting, permanent change within yourself? Everybody's tried this, and it's hard. There's a reason for that. You cannot achieve lasting, permanent change within your system unless your own, for lack of a better word, I know it's all wooish, but it's not, unless your energy is above a certain threshold. If your energy is not above that threshold, the changes don't take. And when I say energy here, I'm not talking about anything weird and esoteric. Energy is defined as the ability to do work. That's the physics of it.
And that's all kinds of work, isn't it?
Yeah. So now it's time to pull up the diagram for just a minute here. Let me share the screen. Oh God, before I even do that, very important. There.
Are you closing your porn windows and such?
Now I'm making you the co-host so you can put up the photos.
That's much more thoughtful, yes. Thank you.
Now, here we go. Here's my incredibly complex diagram for tonight. You will see that there are 4 points here. Areas in which you need to work. The moving center starts down here because that is the most fundamental place to start. We also need to work on the emotional center, the thinking center, and surprisingly, if you want to have abundant energy in your life, your community. We're going to talk about each of these, but I just wanted you to get a look at this. Moving center, emotional center, thinking center, and community. These are the 4 pillars of having a robust energy throughout your entire life. So let's start with the moving center and what that looks like. There are 2 areas for this. The first is each of us, over the years of our life, develop a certain amount of what we call sensory motor amnesia. Sensory motor amnesia is where you forget how to do things with your body. You literally can't remember how to perform certain movements. And it behooves us to recover from this this malady. And we do that by a number of different ways. For instance, the Gurdjieff dances are a good example for their time of a way to develop an antidote to certain sensory motor amnesia, because you had to learn to move your body in ways that it was not normal to move your body. Even simpler, you want to see how much sensory motor amnesia you got. Spend a day doing everything with your non-dominant hand. That will be revelatory for most people. So there are a number of different ways to do this, all of which involve moving your body either in big movements or small movements. Did Cherie get in here today?
She did. She's here.
Good. Okay. So again, Cherie's little hand exercise is an antidote to a certain kind of sensory motor amnesia, because most people, when they start doing it, can't do it very well. And you have to literally repattern your nervous system in a certain way to be able to do all of the little turns and not be like just fumbling around. So find a way to learn those exercises. Cherie, have you done a video on how to do this?
Yes, it's on my YouTube channel, and my YouTube channel is Cherie Sito. So there's nothing fancy. You just use my name and you'll find it there. I don't have too many videos, but it's one of the
Okay, I'm
one.
going to find that when we put this video up, and I'm going to put that
Link
video
in the
up in
description.
the end screen for people.
That too. Yep.
And another good exercise is being able to get up and down off the floor without using your hands or your knees.
Yeah, that can be a little bit more advanced for some people, but it's an essential one.
That it is advanced, but in a way, if you have to use a knee or a hand to get down, then you've got to figure out how to start letting go of at least a hand and then a knee, and then you start figuring out how to do it. And I've had people rail at me in fury about having to do this exercise, and I go, I'm not telling you. They go, tell me how to do it. I go, no, I'm not telling you. Figure it out. And they went, oh. And then once one person got it, she was so happy. And she goes, I didn't realize it was so hard. And she was only about 30. What? So an exercise like that, because it is so infuriating and you think, oh, I'm this age, I can't do it. It's actually rubbish. You just got to figure out a way. And if you do it every day as your normal practice of getting closer to the ground to eat your food, you will actually find novel ways of getting down to the floor and back up again, and you will get stronger. And it's just something that becomes very normalized. But novel movements are a wonderful way to wake up the body, wake yourself up to do something that's challenging and scary.
Yeah. Another area to improve remembrance of your body is balance work. It's also very important. Did you know that you can determine the actual age of a person by how well they can balance? Standard test for biological versus chronological age. Balance on one foot and close your eyes. See how long you can hold it. There are lots of balance exercises out there, and everybody over 40 should be practicing balance exercises anyway, in my humble opinion. Keep your balance through your entire life, because it is much better to die at 85 bursting into a building to rescue puppies from a burning building than it is to fall down and break your hip and die in the hospital. Just a thought. Now, this gets to a greater problem where in the moving center we lose energy, and it's a process that we have called sedimentation. One pretty decent definition of getting old is losing your ability to move in space. So if you look at a 20-year-old walking down the street, they're walking down the street, they're taking up space, they're moving. If you look at an 80-year-old walking down the street, they're oftentimes pulled in tight and they're shuffling and they can barely move. That's sedimentation of the body. You'd be surprised how much of that can be corrected with proper training. And the more of that you have, the more energy you have for doing anything, including the work. Makes sense so far? Anybody want to argue the point? Come on.
So the more you have of what?
The more freedom of movement you have.
Got it. Yes.
Yeah.
Todd.
I noticed this kind of artificially accelerated when I got COVID. There
Yeah.
was coordination and balance that went away overnight, and it has taken 3 years to claw it back. And
Yeah, this is not the first time I've heard this particular story.
No.
And even if you didn't get COVID, being locked in your house for a couple of years will do it to you. When we emerged from COVID, Nora and I, it was like, I felt like a caterpillar clawing his way out of his cocoon. And less so for her, I think, but for me, 2 years of relative immobility, and we lived in a place where it was not possible to get a lot of good exercise for reasons that I don't need to go into. It has taken a while to recover from that.
Well, I have noticed changes.
Yeah.
I like, as Todd put it, accelerated, I'm going to say degradation,
Decrepitude.
decrepitude. That's one we like. I have experienced that as well. And I don't believe it would have been as pronounced if we hadn't been in the situation we were, where we could not do a whole lot of moving around.
I'm having to, my, let's call them nephews and niece have been, it hit very hard, and now I'm trying to, well, there's all sorts of psychological problems that have come from the family being crammed together for a couple of years, and
Yeah.
we are trying to pull the kids out and get them in a social situation where they're moving and aren't in front of a fucking screen.
Yeah, that is going to touch on pretty much all of these points, right? Mental, emotional, physical, social, communal. So, Todd, in terms of the physical, what have been some things that you've noticed over the past 3 years of, as you said, clawing back some of your capacity?
Well, having to deal with the frustration of not being able to do physical things that I used to. Like, I started cutting myself while I was cooking again, which I hadn't done in years. Or,
Recording in progress.
or
It's all you. It was just someone's phone relogging in.
Balance, basic coordination, bumping into things and knocking them over, just all kind of after after those little viruses had run their spike proteins through every cell, and all and the and practicing some of those skills and pattern movement, and interestingly, doing pick in the last year or so, picking up more metal work and woodworking, because with those the precision hand has to be the non-dominant hand, and the leg and the sort of smart leg has to be the dominant, often the dominant hand leg, which is the reverse of what one normally does. And those have helped more than anything else.
That's really interesting because that's just dexterity work, you know. That's craft oriented, and that means it takes a lot of focus, it takes time, it takes patience.
And relaxation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
settling into it, even perhaps entering into a flow state.
Yeah, for instance, I'd never done woodworking before, and
Mm.
things like the chisel hand or the drawing or some of the other things you have to use. You know, you've got the dominant hand providing the power, but the non-dominant hand providing the precision and control. And with the metalwork, the dominant hand is often having to just be, this hammer is going to go right here in exactly the same predictable spot, but all of the variation comes with the non-dominant hand that has to move stuff under it.
Fascinating. So, you know, that's a workout on a certain level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah. So it is, those kind of things have helped tremendously in regaining some of the balance and the balance, the energy, the dexterity um, that had gone away from being shut in for a couple of years.
Excellent. And I think that's a perfect, you know, lived example of what we're talking about. So thank you so much, Todd.
Yeah. So, what can you do if there's no Gurdjieff dances around for you to do? The answer is pretty straightforward. One, walk more. You know, if the Mevlevis are the whirling dervishes and the Rafai are the howling dervishes and the Naqshbandis are the silent dervishes, we're the walking dervishes. That's what we do. We rely upon walking for a number of things, not the least of which is to keep the energy up in our physical bodies. Two, get on YouTube and look up. There are a lot of channels that are done by physiotherapists who can teach you basic balance exercises. They're not hard. Well, some of them are hard. They're not exhausting, but they're interesting. And start with the basic ones and work your way up to the more complex ones.
Yeah.
But start with the physiotherapist first.
And one thing that my physiotherapist has said to me recently, as someone who does experience chronic pain, is that it's okay if you're experiencing, especially if you're experiencing deconditioning, which is, you know, you're not as strong as you used to be. It's okay if you hurt a little bit afterwards from using those muscles in a way that you haven't in a while. But, you know, you don't want to push yourself too hard, and you do want to be able to allow your body to calm down if you're experiencing a bit of muscle pain afterwards. And then you go at it again and you try to rebuild that strength very gradually. Shuri, you probably have thoughts on this, yeah.
Yeah, I teach at every class. When we came back from our break over Christmas, I had to start everybody from scratch. At the end of the year, most of my classes were doing 90 seconds eyes closed, and I'd say half of them could actually do it. And that's ranging from age from 20s to into their 70s. And it's amazing that the amount of resistance you get at the beginning. So this is what I recommend, is that we started back to basics. But for you guys who, if you haven't done it before, when you're standing, your 2 feet, keep your eyes open and just hover. Just take 1 foot just off. It doesn't have to be forward, backward, off to the side, nothing fancy. Just lift it off for 30 seconds and use a timer, and then put it down, 30 seconds for the other side. And then for the other side, then close your eyes. Because that first 30 seconds, you're going to feel a lot of sensation, a lot of things might be happening. Count how many times your foot hits the floor and keep a track of that, so that you have a way of measuring whether you're improving or not, and do it at least once a day. So when you find that you're getting 30 seconds eyes closed, no foot hitting, then up at another 30 seconds, go for a minute. So you can start with your eyes open first. I usually start them with eyes closed first because it freaks them out. And then we do an eyes open, and they get all sorts of information. Go, that wasn't too bad. You're visually hooked into the world. That's normal because you are sighted people. So start off with eyes open, 30 seconds, both feet, and then switch, 30 seconds, eyes closed. Document for yourself how many times your foot hits the floor, and keep improving it, and don't up it until you've at least mastered 1 round of 30 seconds, no foot hitting on the floor. So it goes 1, 2, 3. I've got one lady, she hit the floor every second. Oh my goodness. And she was only in just over 50. And she goes, what? She goes, I didn't think I'd be so bad. I said, you're not bad. You're just unaccustomed. It's just a novel movement, but it will really, really change your life once you can get and master this, because it doesn't, you're more confident in dim light and all those kinds of things, and your capacity to hold yourself when you need to, you start engaging your muscles that will hold that balance. So start off with 30 seconds, eyes open, eyes closed.
So that's a great just entryway into it. Yes. Thank you, Shuri.
Now, the other thing you can do is, again, go to YouTube. Look at the various places that will teach you how to do a body scan. A body scan is a sort of meditative technique where you take your awareness through your body from the bottoms of your feet to the top of your head and out your arms and all them other places. When you do this, you will begin to notice that there are some blank places where you're scanning. And you remember I was talking about sensory motor amnesia. This is one way to find out where you have it. I've noticed that a lot of people, they have a lot of awareness in the front of their body and very little behind. They just don't have a lot of attention on the back half of their body. And so you can use a body scan to get more attention on the back half of your body. And these are things that you don't need extra time to do. You don't need to close your eyes. You don't need to go into a trance. You stop at a stoplight. You do a quick body scan. Then you go. Don't do it while you're driving.
I also want to mention that James mentioned tension earlier. Unnecessary, extraneous tension, more than what you need to hold yourself up or hold your cup of coffee or whatever. But maybe you're clenching your jaw. Maybe you're digging your nails into your arm or clenching your toes against the carpet or something. You can use a body scan to help you find those places and give yourself an opportunity to relax those parts of you that are all bundled up for no reason. And that'll allow you to ideally be a little less tense, right? Something I think many of us are struggling with these days. Shoulder release, and give yourself a little attention to the places that need it. And that's stuff you learn over time by getting comfortable doing body scans.
Raphael has an interesting question. Would you like to read it,
Yeah,
Noor?
sure. Raphael says, I had a weird way of balancing myself. I suffered from head trauma and had vertigo for a whole year. Anyways, I would get that vertigo while riding my motorcycle. Ooh, scary. And it was awful. But for some reason, I don't know how to explain, but I would use my heart to balance as a compass of some sort and keep straight and not fall off the bike or crash. Has anyone experienced any of this?
And the answer is yes, in the most interesting way. When I was young, my teacher sent me to the Mevlevis to learn how to do the Mevlevi turn. And one of the things that we learned is that you're not supposed to get dizzy. And the only way that you can do the turn and not get dizzy is to center in the heart. So there's something about that that's specific to dizziness. And I don't know the mechanism, but I know for a fact that it's real. And you would think, oh, center in the belly, center in the dantian.
And for some purposes, that is the thing to do.
That is a good thing to do, but for specifically for the Semasenbashi, the guy who was teaching the turn, said, if you center in your belly, you will fall over.
Mm.
You have to center in your heart. And
Yeah.
it was true.
Yep.
And once I learned to do that, I didn't get dizzy. And this is not like with the ballet dancers and modern dancers that spot when they turn, which is you turn your head and then you turn your body, turn your head and then turn your body. This is keeping everything pretty much in exactly the same place. And you still don't get dizzy.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine on a motorcycle, for example, you got to keep your eyes fixed in front of you. You can't, use your eyes to ground you.
No, and with vertigo, that doesn't work anyway because the world spins.
And sometimes your eyes do crazy stuff
You
too.
get
So
nystagmus and your eyes are going.
yeah. So Raphael, I'm glad that that seems affirming to you. You said, "Wow, thank you. That's great to know." And your experience is your experience, but clearly that's shared by others. Thanks for sharing. Alka, did you have a thought?
Yes, I wanted to share my challenges with my anger. I started having more anger in the past couple of years, which surprised me because I thought I was not such an angry person. But during my one-on-one session with Mustaq, he started telling me like what I should do. So every few hours, or sometimes every twice an hour, I scan myself, my body scanning I do. And I see that I have been accumulating unnecessary tension. It's just a bad habit. And I've picked it up. And then when I release that tension by either moving or being aware of it or talking to it, somehow I release the anger too, like not on anyone, just from my body. So it just doesn't surprise me or the other person. And that has really helped me. Since that scanning the body has really helped me. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you for sharing. And that's excellent because it shows just how interconnected these things are. Because, you're talking about anger, which most of us might think of as emotion, and specifically emotion oriented content, but It lives in the body.
Yeah, it just accumulates from little things, and just you don't even know it's accumulating unless you have picked up some kind of exercise to observe yourself. So it really helped me. So I highly recommend one-on-one sessions with Mustaq.
And I didn't even pay her to say that.
All right. Is it time to move on to emotionless talk, or do
I
you feel
think
like...
so, because I mean, we could talk just on this for the entire night, but then we'll
Yeah.
cover the rest of it. This is a survey tonight. This is to give you ideas of what you can do. And if anybody's interested, let me know, or let Noor know, because she's the one who plans this stuff out. And we can drill down more specifically into certain aspects. So,
Yeah. I mean, we haven't even touched on things that we also care about, like ways of eating, fueling up, right?
yeah,
And
so that's
rest and
incredibly important.
recovery and all of that stuff.
Yeah, along with the other stuff that we were talking about, get enough sleep. The idea that somehow going with very little sleep, 4 hours of sleep a night and that sort of thing is bullshit. This does not make you more spiritual. That does not allow you to do the work more efficiently. It makes you stupid. And
Todd.
The Shakyamuni Buddha said that when he practiced austerities and didn't eat and didn't sleep, instead of becoming more enlightened, he became hungry and angry and stupid.
yeah,
Yep. Yeah.
who can argue with that?
Great,
Yeah.
Todd. Thanks.
And eat good food.
What was it, Michael Pollan? Eat
Yeah,
real food.
mostly vegetables.
Yeah.
Or never eat anything that has its own TV commercial.
Mhm.
I think that was also Michael Pollan. Yeah, eat real food, healthy ingredients. And those are things that will give you the physical energy you need for the work. Now we move to the emotional center. That was moving center stuff. Emotional center stuff. The sovereign tool for the emotional center is muhasabah, what Gurdjieff called self-observation. To train yourself to be aware of what you're feeling and how you're feeling it and how it's relating to the things around you is important. And we've done several videos on how to do this, so I'm not going to go into details here, but there will be links in the end card for that sort of thing. And along with that, and most importantly, I think, is the practice of gratitude. If you want to balance your emotional center to where you have more energy in it, then the practice of gratitude is the best thing I know of for you to do. So do that. And do not let your emotional center steal from your moving center. Do not let your moving center steal from your emotional center. What does that look like?
Mhm.
Anybody got some ideas of what that would look like?
That theft, you mean?
Yeah, that theft. One center stealing energy from the next.
Could it be like unprocessed emotions, for example, and they're weighing heavily on you? So
Yeah. And remember, an emotion is a story that is attached to a feeling.
A sensation
Yeah, a sensation.
attached to a sensation.
Yeah. You all understand what that means? If I say to you, can you think of a time when you felt really happy? One of the things that will happen is you will find a place in your body that feels a particular way. And that is connected to the idea of happiness. And there will be usually memories involved with that. Usually it's going to be some event or some quality of events that make you happy. Like some people will think of their birthday throughout their lifetime. So
what
there's the
about,
story and there's the feeling.
yeah, in the moment then? Like
Yeah.
happy in the moment?
In the moment, you feel the feeling and it's associated with what's going on. You feel the sensation in your body and you go, oh, I'm happy.
Mm-hmm. You name it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you are stuck in, say, a negative feeling, a negative emotion, you're usually thinking of something in the past and ruminating over this and that and the other thing and having negative sensations. And that's where the energy gets lost. So there are a lot of different ways to deal with that. We don't need to go into all of them. But self-observation and the practice of gratitude to begin to break down the sedimentation of the emotional center.
What are some ways we might practice gratitude? Oh, first of all, Marcos, I see you unmuted, and I did see your comment in the chat. I was just waiting for the right moment to share it, but would you like to
Yeah.
go ahead?
No, let's address that because that kind of that slops over into a couple of these.
Mm-hmm. So in the chat, Marcos was saying, as to exercises, Qigong helped me a lot.
Yeah, Qigong is if you have a good Qigong teacher and you're doing it right, it is a most excellent thing. And I know a lot of people here have benefited from that. Nancy is still benefiting from it. And Todd, you've done a bunch of Qigong, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, highly recommended for working on it'll address all of the centers if it's the right stuff. But yeah.
Now I see you unmuted, Marcos. Did you have a thought that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I was talking about gratitude
Yeah.
and I think about external consideration and internal consideration. You know that Gurdjieff addresses.
Yes.
We think about all those ruminating, all those worries, and that consumes a lot of energy. And when we're external consideration, it will be like gratitude. It'll be thinking about what you can do for others and yourself. No, and it dissipates worries. And you don't waste energy needlessly. These are just thinking about that.
Yeah, and you're absolutely correct. A few weeks ago, we did a talk on internal versus external considering, and I don't know we're going to have room to put all of these links up, but it's there. It's in the 9-sided circle channel.
Yeah. So, one of the classic examples of a gratitude exercise is either first thing in the morning or at night before a person goes to sleep. You take a moment to mentally or physically list 3 to 5 to 10 things that you really appreciate. And they can be really small things like, one for me is I wake up to a fresh cup of tea every morning, put there by my partner, and I really value that. Another might be hot shower, the opportunity to have a hot shower or to see sunshine or anything. It can be the smallest of things. Taking a moment to read a few pages of your favorite book. So, whatever you list on that, nothing is wrong as long as it creates that feeling of gratitude in you. And when you're struggling, let's say you do write them down on paper, you can look back on those things and perhaps they might serve as an anchor and a reminder towards gratitude.
Yeah, so it's easy to find things that you can be grateful for if you look. And it doesn't need to be big things.
It might be big things, but
Big
it
things are
doesn't need
great.
to be.
Doesn't
Yeah.
need to be. And finding things that you're grateful for in the moment and naming them is, to me, the very best thing to do. It's good to look back on your day and go, oh, I'm really grateful for that. I'm grateful for this. And for me personally, it's even better when in the moment I go, wow, I'm really grateful for this.
Yeah. I think it can take practice to get there, especially if you're in a difficult place in your life.
Yep.
But again, it's one of those things that you kind of warm up to through the doing. I speak from experience on that. In the beginning, I would have loathed that kind of exercise, but I understand now that it does work because it was one of the core things that pulled me out of the worst of my depression several years ago. And it's never been that bad since because I know how to at least point out reasons for gratitude to myself.
Yeah. And for me, I have trained myself to do it constantly. There's a thing called sorting categories. Like, what do you sort for in your life? And I tend to sort for situations of gratitude. And it works well for me. Might not work for everybody. Works for me.
Yep. Sorting for the good as opposed for the sucky, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And it seems to make people feel good. The other day I was in the little hardware store that I frequent, and I told the guy how grateful I was for this store so that I didn't have to go to heartless big box stores. And it made his day. He was all happy. He smiled.
Yeah. And that's a nice thing too, when you can experience the gratitude yourself and then share it with someone else. Especially if it's about them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yes, please.
One of the things my longtime teacher talks about regularly is being grateful just for being alive. That's something that works for me.
Yeah, that's like foundational. Now we need to move over to the head center, the intellectual center. The basic practice for the intellectual center is murakabe, what Gurdjieff called self-remembering. And that practice is, I think, essential. And again, we've done several videos on how to do that in a non-mysterious way. And there will be links. Along with that, along with learning how to do self-remembering,
I got it.
you got it? That person dropped in late last week too, and then just left again, I think.
Yeah.
Could be wrong. Training the mind is good. Take a course in critical thinking. Seriously. You don't even have to pay money. Oxford University does an online 5 or 7 hour course in the basics of critical thinking for free for anybody to go and watch and learn from. And a number of other places offer things like that. Simple Google search on learning critical thinking will give you more resources than you can shake a stick at.
So what's the benefit of that? I mean, it might seem obvious, but I think it's important to.
The benefit of that is that it can help you to move from the subjective to the objective. And it can help you to see it can help you to see other people's bullshit. That's all well and good. But the most important thing is it helps you to see your own bullshit.
There you go. Yeah.
That's the place where critical thinking is most necessary, is for yourself. Where does logic fail you? Where do your thoughts violate the rules of logic? Not in the no feeling Commander Spock sense, but in the actual sense of these ideas that you are holding for yourself fall apart under examination. It used to be that you could not graduate from college without doing a couple of semesters of critical thinking. This was back when I was in college, back in the dark ages. Now you're hard put to find a course in it.
Yeah, I don't think I took one.
Yeah. Kids these days.
It wasn't required. I mean, I don't even
Yeah.
know if it's an option. But in any event, even if you've gone through those classes, it's probably worth revisiting, right?
Yeah. Remind yourself. It's nice to be able to, and you don't have to learn formal logic. You don't have to learn all of the Aristotelian syllogisms and things like that. But just the basic just the basic how-tos of it for yourself. Todd points out that back in an earlier day, logic and rhetoric were required before you could even get into college, which is true. And one of the things that you can do with this is it can help you to separate the energy of the emotional center from the mental center.
Mm.
That is ridiculously important.
I think people can feel threatened by that, but personally, I think there's the opportunity to, in assessment, to take the pressure off of having the emotional part of us carry the weight of all of our,
Decisions.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All of the things that we've talked about so far are designed to help break sedimentation in the person, to make your being more flexible, to give you more choice. Human beings have choice. Machines do not have choice. And the more sedimented you get, the more machine-like you get.
Marcos says, interesting suggestion. Critical thinking, the separation of the thinking to the emotional, I'm thinking maybe from the emotional, is very useful. Yeah, and they don't need to be isolated from each other, but it is certainly helpful to have the capacity, the option, the ability to put things on balance in a logical sort of way, and then have emotions perhaps inform that, or vice versa.
Yeah, they can work in support of each other as opposed to
Exactly.
being opposed to each other.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's important because emotions are stronger than thoughts.
How might you, Mushtaq, categorize a gut sense of something? Like it could be an intuition, it could be a quote unquote feeling.
It is either your moving center or your emotional center sending you a message that it wants you attend to.
Mm-hmm. So then you could take the opportunity to apply activity from the intellect, from the
Yeah. The
intellectual center.
intellectual center to go, okay, what is this about?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So nothing is isolated. Nothing is cut off from anything else.
No. And I can think of a number of examples where I'm walking in the evening and I get near an alley and my moving center goes, hold on, Jack, you don't want to take another step. And so I know enough to know that I need to stop right now, maybe back up, and then use my intellectual center to scan for the data that I need to know. And oh, there's a suspicious looking shadow over there, as if there was a person lurking in that alley with a lead pipe, waiting for a somebody who is distracted to go walking by so they could thump them over their head and take their money.
For example.
Yeah, and that's a very real example.
Yeah. Yep.
So when everything is working together and each center is in support of the other, you have more freedom and flexibility. Now, the last thing that we need to talk about tonight, the frosting on the cake, the pasty resistance, as we say where I come from, is community. If you want to have abundant energy, be within a community that supports having abundant energy. One of the things that happens as you get older is that your community gets smaller and smaller and smaller until you end up doing the hokey pokey in an assisted care facility somewhere. So the trick to community is start now. Build a community around yourself that supports being awake, that supports doing the work. Preferably one that is somewhat decentralized. Be suspicious of communities that have authoritarian leaders, because they usually don't have your best interest at heart. But like-minded individuals whose company you enjoy, who you can work with. Everybody's silent.
Do you think that needs to be in person or not?
I think that in person can be very important. And that's why I enjoy going to fencing classes so much, for instance, is it's in person. Admittedly, COVID kind of ruined that for me, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Ian, I saw you unmuted. Did you have something you wanted to share?
Yeah, I was going to say that that's actually something I started thinking about just in the last few weeks, because I live kind of a very isolated life in the physical world. I was probably one of the people who was least affected by the COVID lockdowns because it really didn't make any difference to the way I lived. But and also my circle of friends is really kind of scattered all over the world. And so Facebook for me is a great way of keeping somewhat in touch with them. And there are people I do know locally and at different distances, but I don't really have anybody in that world who, for example, is interested in this kind of thing, at least to the best of my knowledge. I do have there's an online option trading group that I participate in very actively. And in fact, I've produced some Excel tools and Thinkorswim tools that people seem to like. um, and so those are really the only kind of communities that I'm involved with. And one of the things I was thinking about is that there are people in physical reach who sort of are well inclined enough towards me to potentially be helpful if I got into trouble. But I really don't have anyone. It's like all my family is gone. So I really don't have anyone in the physical world who I could fall back on if I got in real trouble. And while it's not a super concern, it is something that's just there in the back of my head that if I could figure out a way to improve that situation, it would be good. And yet I have absolutely no way of knowing how to go about it. For example, I don't think that going to a senior center is likely to let me find people who have the same sort of interests that I do.
I'm sure that's a relatable feeling for not only people who are here and watching, but for many people just in the
Yeah.
world generally. Yeah.
just consider that, remember the definition that I gave you early on about what being old is, getting old is. Your world gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And YouTube is great. Zoom has been a lifeline to a lot of people,
Including us.
including us.
Mhm.
And I personally think that nothing is as nice for your soul as having some actual physical contact with people, sitting in the same room with them. And it doesn't even have to be a group of people who are into the work together. Find a group of people who enjoy cheese and pretzels and have a cheese and pretzel day. That will be an improvement over nobody physically in your life.
Yeah, I do have a couple of friends who tend to hold an annual party or two. And I was actually kind of looking forward to one of them had one round about Halloween-ish time. And I was kind of looking forward to going to it. And then I made the mistake of reading down all of the comments in the event list in Facebook and found one where somebody asked, are you going to insist on people being COVID tested? And this was a couple of hours before I was due to go out, and I didn't have COVID, but I didn't have any tests either. And I think in the spring event, they probably had the same requirement, but I hadn't read through and discovered it, so I was perfectly happy. But once I'd seen that requirement, I thought it would be, I mean, I could have ignored it, but I just felt it would be wrong to just go and pretend. So I'm hoping that I've got some of the free government COVID tests now, so I'm hoping that the next time they have an event, I'll be able to meet up with them.
All of that makes perfect sense. And I mean, I've heard stories of people on both sides of that equation before where, there were people who were like, I went to this party because I thought it would be safe. And then people got sick because someone did lie at the party. And on the other hand, yeah, it means that if you're not prepared to go, like you weren't, I mean, that's sad too, right? So I am happy that you're stocked up for the next time. But I think Mushtaq makes a good point that I think I remember this, so I'm speaking from experience. When I first started working on my own work, my own shit, you get this attitude perhaps of, oh, I don't want to hang out with normies. I want to be around people who are interested in the same things I'm into and who are working on themselves, quote unquote. And I think that can be very isolating. And I also think it's a newbie attitude. I'm speaking from experience again here, that it's important for us to be aware that we need to check ourselves when we start thinking my only friends can be people who are interested in the same stuff that I'm into. And that's not what I'm hearing you say at all, Ian, but it came up for me that it's important to speak to that so that we remember the community can be built in any number of contexts.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Many, many, many years ago, I was in a situation where that was kind of the cultural norm for that group. And I got out of it after a number of years. There's no way I would fall back into that.
Yeah, Right? Been there, done that.
In fact, my other friend who normally has an annual party, although for some reason he didn't this year, and I'm not sure why, is based around music. He has a picking party because he's very into bluegrass and stuff.
Wow, that's awesome. Cool.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
That's great. I hope you have the opportunity to have more fun with friends, Ian.
Yeah, likewise. Anyway, that's me.
Yeah, thank you. Todd, did you have a thought?
Yeah, and for the social one of the things, I mean, shared interests are nice and I don't are a good way, but I found that there's some fundamental character things that can make things a lot easier or harder. Um, oh, just as an example, there was at a company I worked at, there was an all hands meeting one day, and there was no difficulty at all telling who was who. The engineers were all sitting down on the ground and mostly going, I want to be back at work, and kind of mumbling together in small groups. And the marketers were all standing up and doing the wave together. And it was very exhausting for those. Well, it gave energy when they were sort of in their groups by themselves, but it was very taxing on them to spend a lot of time together because the personal styles and just the fundamental ways that they worked were not compatible with each other, and it was very wearing for them to spend a lot of time in social groups with each other. And it's one of those things that things became much easier when that became more apparent, and became easier to make allowances for for how they were. But again, it also made it easier to it made it more difficult to be the engineer and the marketers, or the extroverted marketer, and a bunch of introverted, generally generally aspy tech people.
I was reminded of a situation in my own life in the 1993 to 1994 time frame, where I got on a small task force to try and arrange a deal with a partnership with Microsoft, and I was a tech guy, but there was this sales guy who had just a totally different kind of personality. It's just I couldn't even begin to describe it. Along with this guy who's kind of a Machiavellian corporate strategist, who was really one of the most fascinating guys I've ever met in my life. And he just had a wholly different attitude as well. But we all managed to get on and work together. But it was just, in terms of a study of contrasts, I've never really been in a situation like that before or since.
Yeah, that adds a degree of challenge, doesn't it? When you have different kinds of styles of communication and even movement cultures, physical movement.
And yet it's worth it to find ways to expand your social circle.
Mm. Yep.
You can be very picky and very selective. And even a very small social circle, in my experience, is better than none. It will keep you young.
Yeah. Nancy, I see you have your unmuted. Did you have something you wanted to share?
Yeah, I was thinking about what Ian was saying, and he seemed like he was shifting between social and people who are willing to help each other. And, depending on what you can find, you may have, it's better to have people to hang out with, even if they're not so great in difficult times or emergencies.
And it has to start there for many of us, right? Like, intimacy tends to be something that's built over time. Dependability tends to be something that becomes apparent over time.
Yeah, the other thing is I'm active on Facebook. Ian or anybody, if you want to be more in touch there. I'm under Nancy Lebovitz, so.
Aw. Thanks
Sure.
for reaching out, Nancy. Yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, I'd almost decide. I thought about it because I think we have like 4 mutual friends in common.
Yay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So there you have it. No big secrets. No, here is the secret technique for raising the energy in your body. It's basically very practical things. There's things that are required that you actually do them to get benefit from them. You can't just think about them. But nothing particularly hard. So it becomes an interesting question. If you're not doing these sorts of things, what stops you? You don't have to answer that to me, but just I want you to think about it. What stops you from doing nice, simple things like taking a walk or hanging out with a friend or eating a good meal or doing a little emotional hygiene? What stops you from doing that?
I've kind of got a scheduling problem throughout my day, because it's in large part because I feel a need to be very well informed about the markets and other things. And so I have a very structured day, which is quite the opposite of what I ever thought my retirement was going to be like. And I don't know I don't know what I can cut out to make space for much. Now, when Sherry was talking about no, it wasn't about that. It was about, earlier today, I watched your 3 videos on self-remembering, self-observation, and self-witnessing revisited.
How timely.
Yeah. And for the self-observation one, you started off by going through what I think you call a body scan.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because I find I had a lot of difficulty putting my attention in different areas. But one of the things that surprised me at the end was that something worked because I did feel better at the end. So I had been thinking that that's something that's short enough that I can find a time slot to do it in after the markets close. Although I still got other things to do then, but it's a period of time where I've got more flexibility than normal. And I might be able to fit in, say, the balance exercises that Sherry was talking about. I made some notes to follow up on that and come back and rewatch that bit of the video. So small steps, and we'll see
Yeah.
where we go.
And I'm going to tell you something that you're probably not going to like to hear, but I'm going to tell it to you anyway. And then you can call me names or whatever you'd like. You have a lot more time than you think you do. I know about watching the markets, and it can become narcotizing. And you need to perhaps ask yourself, am I doing this because there is something that I need to see? Or am I doing this because it can keep my mind focused on this rather than on the rest of my life that I'm not so happy with? And
That's
I don't care what the answer is.
no, it's a very good question, and one I've been starting to think about myself anyway.
Yeah. Are you
Because
actually making money on futures?
I don't do futures,
I thought you did.
no, options.
Okay.
And in fact, right at the end of last week, I started thinking about my portfolio in a slightly different way and started making some shifts so that maybe I don't have to pay attention to the option stuff. Now, in earnings season, I'm really busy because one of the things that I do is specific kind of earnings trades. But once the bulk of earnings, so we're just coming into the really heavy time in earnings season. So
Are you making money doing that?
actually, I'm making most of the time, yes, and I'm getting better at it, but I'm not
Are you
making
making more money than you could make being a greeter at Walmart?
no. I'm very aware that I'm not making enough to just for the amount of time I'm putting into it.
Okay.
And that's part of my struggle with where I'm at the moment.
Yeah, Shuri is
Harry?
eager to share her thoughts, which I know will be directly relevant to this. Yeah.
So Ian, I used to be a futures commodities trader, and I was a technical analyst in majoring in bond markets all over the world. I used to watch 30 markets every day, and I had to write a report that had to go out to all the clients every night. And you can get completely bogged down in information and numbers and movement and so forth. So I structured myself into knowing that it's a 50-50 thing. So you either buy or you sell, but you have to know how much you're prepared to lose, how much you're prepared to risk, if you're playing a short, a medium, or a long term, and you stick to those kind of rules and recognize that usually your first impression was the right one, because you've got a 50-50 chance of writing this. So most of the time, the only way technical analysts really earned their dough was they had to be 60 to 70% right every night. So it was a really stressful, job that I did. But I did it for quite a long time, and I walked away from it. And I never look at a market now because I know that part of me has a kind of addiction to it, because it is exciting, it is fun, and it is immersing yourself, and you can lose yourself completely. But awareness started to creep into my life, and I became aware of what it was making me into. But the rule is that if you're overthinking it, just go back to that first impression. That usually is the right one. And that just cuts the noise, because you can actually shut your day down at a certain time, whatever markets you're trading. Because I was 24/7, I was getting just calls all sorts of times. And I said, this is my impression. Talk to me at 7 o'clock in the morning. There's no other change. If this happens, there's no other change. And that way I was able to conserve my energy. But if you're going to do something like that and think, oh, I need a bit more information of this and a bit more of that and that and that and that, you just get cloudy. Your clarity disappears.
Yeah,
So
I can't imagine doing anything that would be as intense as that. Really.
that's why we found the mums and dads, that we call them, the day traders, were so much more work than a corporate client, because they required so much input, input, input. And if you're caught in that, you're just a little hamster on a wheel.
Mm.
You have to really be clear on what your investment strategy is, and you stick to it, and you have to have your rules about where you get in and where you get out. And don't break them. Don't keep fudging it, because mums and dads tend to run their losses and cut their profits too quick. They've got to do it round the other way. You have to know exactly how you're doing it. So if everybody else is getting into that end of the market, it's probably time to get out, because that's the information is old.
Yeah, I learned to cut my losses early, very young.
Yeah,
I don't let the profits run as well as I could, but I am pretty good at technical analysis, and in fact, I've written quite a lot of my own indicators for Thinkorswim.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I just used to look at those indicators and think, okay, this is my rule. This is what I learned. I learned from one of the best people in the market at the time, and I enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it. There is no doubt about it. But then in the end, you just have to keep your rules if you're going to keep doing that as your source of income, because otherwise you'll get lost. That's it. Yeah, you just have to be tight about it.
So
Yeah,
for me, sorry guys, I think I just want to make sure that we stay on target with this talk.
Sure.
My takeaway from this discussion is that if we are going to expend energy on these things that really you could give all your energy to it if you let yourself do that, there needs to be bounds. There has to be some kind of constructed sense of, here's what I'm willing to give to this process, whatever it is. It could be trading, it could be athletics, it could be time with friends, it could be doing emotional hygiene, whatever it is. You have to be able to spend time in each of these areas of your life and not just dump everything into one domain. Because it all matters. It's all intertwined. It's all relevant. And it is so easy to lose sight of balance.
And it's easy to lose sight of what you are actually getting out of it, if anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean,
And
that's a question
most
to
people
ask
don't get a
yourself.
lot of money out of it. So what else are you getting out of it?
Mm-hmm. That friendship that is super high maintenance. Maybe you're not getting what people would expect you to get out of it. What are you getting out of it? Is it worth it?
Well, I noticed it's getting late. Probably don't want to delve into
Yep.
that for another 20 minutes.
Any last thoughts? There are a few people that we have not had the opportunity to hear from.
Call on them, love.
All right. Ilmar, it's so good to see you. What's coming up for you?
No, I mean, yeah, nice to be here again. Good material. I enjoyed it. I found myself reaching because it's almost like the energy level was a little low for me, you know. So but that was, other than that, I'm having a great old time, and I liked some of the points that you brought up. I definitely need to work on my balance area, and I appreciate that little exercise you mentioned, you know. And yeah, the body scans work for me very well. I think they're very, very useful, actually. And so yeah, I'm a reasonably happy camper. That's all I gotta say.
And you didn't drown. We're happy you didn't drown.
Oh, that's right. I didn't drown. No, that was down in San Diego itself. Up in North County where I am, it was not quite as bad, you know.
Oh,
So
good.
but I just definitely appreciate not drowning. I kind of like this life, so drowning is not really on my schedule at the moment, you know.
Excellent.
But,
Good. It's great to see you though.
yeah, fun to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, and next time we'll do a song and dance for you.
All right. Hey, if you do that, I'll definitely show up. You know, I haven't seen you do any dancing for a while. You know, I mean that, by the way, used to be, I
That's
guess,
right.
one of my better ways of keeping physically active was that, which
Mhm.
got really shot. I mean, I used to do Argentine tango. It really got shot down with COVID. You know, so the COVID really had a major impact on me. Zoom saved me a lot,
Yeah.
for community and also for this stuff. You know.
Yeah,
But
and
COVID really
tango
did a
was a
number.
social thing for you too, wasn't it?
Which was?
Tango was a social
Oh
thing.
yeah. I used this was a social thing. It was a physical thing. It was also an emotional thing. I mean, it was
Yeah.
well, it's a long story, but yeah. But COVID really did a number. I mean, it really. I'm fortunate that out our backyard door, there's this nice trail going by the river, so I can take walks at least, you know. But and was able to do that during COVID times. But yeah, I mean, I didn't go to the gym. I even for a while cut back on swimming, and it's just, and not surprised, but I'm kind of in awe how much of an impact COVID had on me, aside from my eyesight, which I messed with, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, all the points you guys raised were very real to me, you know.
Yes.
Follow Mushtaq's advice and follow Kyle Norris' advice. You know, it seems like damn good advice as far as I can tell.
Yep. I mean, we've all kind of lived these things. And so it is not just, pontificating so much as lived experience talking. And it hasn't been easy to build back up. But we're doing the best that we can. Brian, how about you?
I really like this idea of desedimentation. And we talked about balance earlier. And I mean, every day I use this thing called the Revolution Balance Board. And you can look it up on YouTube, and it's a fantastic tool to just work your balance. And at first, it looks kind of dangerous, but very quickly, it's amazing how you're able to start moving around really freely on it. And it's a lot of fun. You can really mark your improvements, and I recommend it for everybody.
Sounds like something worth checking out, Everybody can start where they're at, and if that seems like a good fit, I say go for it. Sounds cool.
Yeah, I got to visit the dojo.
The Road Dojo.
Road Dojo.
Yeah, and Yusef and I actually went to the park last weekend and worked the slack line, which is another great tool for balance that I also recommend. But thanks for the talk.
Thanks, Brian, and thanks for chiming in, Yusuf. I mean, that's like a lived example of community, and
9-sided circle chapter.
yeah, I'll take it. I like it. Go for it. Is there anything you might like to add, Yusuf? Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it was a cool talk. Very far-reaching. Didn't expect a technical analysis of the options market, but that's fun and relevant to me. Oh, one thing, Ian, I've said it in the chat, but the market does move the most in the first 2 hours. So that's kind of how I'm treating it, because I have the itch to want to trade some, and I'm letting myself do like an hour a day or something like that. But yeah, the social aspect, that's always been relevant. I'm kind of like I've always been trying to find somewhere between the bar and the mosque, just I think something like 9-sided circle is really cool. And the whole thing of finding people online first, and and having different people for different stuff, but that it doesn't, not everybody has to be doing the work and that kind of thing. But yeah, great talk. Nothing else right now.
Excellent. Thanks. That's my word tonight. Excellent. But yeah. I think there's something about diversity in our friendships too that can be important, and that keeps us well-rounded and engaged. So that's something I want to point out too. Maria, do you feel up for sharing your thoughts?
Sure. A couple of things that I thought about when we were talking about the moving center were, trying to do a hula hoop as an adult and how easy it was as a child. And that is, it's much more of a challenge as an adult.
I
Yeah.
experienced that somewhat recently, yes. And speaking of like sensory motor awareness, I found it easier to go one way and not the other way. And I was like, that is something that I could work on if I wanted. So
Yeah. And then I thought, I wondered if myofascial work might be a great way to release some of the bound up energy that's in our bodies and our tissues and sort of contorting our bodies and with that unnecessary tension. So that and possibly using a mini trampoline might be helpful.
fun.
Yeah. And then I had a thought about, I think Mushtaq said something about don't let one center steal from another center. And I think that was about not letting the thinking center steal from the emotional center by way of stories or something.
Yeah,
But
or the emotional center steal from the moving center by way of stories and such.
Any can steal from any
okay,
other. Yeah.
okay. But I guess my thought was that sometimes it could be helpful. Like if doing emotional work, especially emotional repression work, to use the stories as an entry point. So sort of to amp up the stories, to amp up the emotion, to then activate the sensations in the body. So yeah, just that thought I
Yeah,
had
that's the
about that.
difference between doing it consciously and unconsciously.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And the community piece. So I'm not well, I consider myself Sufi, and yet I am in a small town. So I've found community through a Christian church. And there are overlaps in, I guess, the aims, though very different in perspectives. But I'm finding community there. And then I also thought younger people, you know, it would probably be a great thing to find community with younger folks if we're older,
Yeah,
because they'll keep us they'll keep us young. So
I think that goes both ways. I mean, in my experience, I think Moshtaq and I can both speak to this, like being around people with more life experience who are older, or being around people who are younger with less life experience but with fresh points of view. That's part of, yes, I mean, I 100% agree with you. And I would wrap that into uh perhaps aiming for diversity in our relationships so that we can have that richness and that sense of vivacity and the things that allow us to get out of our own little bubbles.
and
And go ahead. Sorry.
no, yeah, I totally agree. Sorry, I interrupted there, but it made me also think of saying yes to things that we wouldn't normally do, getting out of the comfort zone and trying new things. So yeah, this
Yeah.
is a great talk, and I appreciate all the tips too on the balancing. I'll definitely try that out.
Thank you so much, Maria. Um, Raphael, are you there? Or how about you, Levita? Are you there?
Yes,
How are you doing? What's coming up for you tonight?
I a lot of excellent points were made, and I don't really have anything that would add to it.
Oh, okay. Well,
I,
thanks
I,
for
I
coming,
agree with a
Levita.
lot of it. What?
Thank you for just coming, for showing up.
Well, thank you for having the talk.
I think that's everybody, yes?
Yeah, Ilmar, did you have something you wanted to share?
Yeah, I just wanted to, Maria's question about myofascial work. I mean, I found rolfing actually to be quite helpful. I mean, I've got an 84-year-old body, so it's, it needs a lot of work like that. But I found it didn't last for a long time. I mean, I had to repeat it, but I did find that it helped, so to that. Also, serendipitous events jumping on him can be kind of fun. Like somebody called on the phone, a message on the phone for me today. Do you want to have dinner tomorrow night? And I said, sure, but you got to tell me who the hell you are first. And it was all this crazy call. It turned out it was somebody from Paris, and we got into a long chat and talk and stuff, and built a new relationship out of a purely accidental happening, which was kind of neat. Anyway, that's all for me.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
love that. And you mentioned, body work has been mentioned a couple times. Again, as someone who experiences chronic pain, I find that to be invaluable. Like, getting a weekly chiropractic adjustment is not for everyone, but for me, I found that it's extremely beneficial in helping me increase my mobility, which thereby increases my ability for movement in general. And by mobility, I mean I could be like a little shrimp ball curled up and hunched over if I didn't have some kind of body work done on a regular basis. But it builds up to allow me more access to movement to get that care. And I'm glad that I have access to it. So it's worth exploring if it's open to you. So from Todd, we have one part of the physical and emotional, come to think of it, bits is recognizing, oh, I get it. One part of the physical and emotional, come to think of it, bits is recognizing the difference between unfamiliar sensation, fatigue, and actual pain. Yes. That requires paying attention and a willingness to be curious about the sensations in your body. Thank you for mentioning that, Todd. Ed, thank you. What's up?
Hi, how you doing? Can you hear
Doing
me?
well. Glad you were
Yeah.
able to make it.
Great. I'm
Yes.
good to be here. In reference to being around other people who may or may not have the same interests, I find it to be good because it gives us an opportunity to find out where we are and to work on different aspects of ourselves. So I find it very interesting at times just to be around somebody that I think that I don't have any interest with, or we don't share the same common ideas, but to find out where am I at and what do I need to work on.
Yes. And yeah, I think that's a way in which being in proximity to others in whichever mode that's happening in gives us an opportunity for others to serve as mirrors for us and for us to serve as mirrors for them.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Ed. Uh, Yeah, Raphael, I'm glad that you're being safe. If you have anything you might like to add now, that's totally welcome though. Otherwise, I guess we could wrap up.
Yeah, it's time to wrap it up. Gotta make dinner.
Yeah, I'm definitely edging into hunger. Moving center energy needs. Thank you so much for making time, everyone. And you've all you've definitely enriched the conversation with your own experiences. And that's exactly what I was talking about in the beginning. Yeah. Yeah, butt pain from sitting a long time. Yep. Moving center demands. Getting up to move. Well, take good care, everyone. Maybe we'll see you again soon. And in the meantime, it's been lovely having you. So, shall we go on Brady Bunch mode?
We're on Brady Bunch mode. I'm way ahead of you.
So ahead of the game. So on the ball. All right, so we can wave to each other, wave to everybody watching on the replay, and we hope to see you again soon. Take care, everyone.
Bye, folks.
Bye.